Good evening. Welcome into the Irish NFL show. Welcome into your Week 9 Monday recap on a Tuesday evening. And what a Tuesday evening we have in store with the US elections and the last 30 minutes of the NFL trade deadline, which we've had quite a few trades today over the course of the last 4 to 5 hours, which we're going to get into now. Myself, Brian O'Leary, Kieran Boyle, Noel Downing. And we will have Shane Brennan joining us very, very shortly. He's caught up in a work situation, as he called it. So good to have you guys on board. We are going to get to the action, which I thought was where we were going to start the show off. But I suppose because of the nature of the day that we've had with the amount of trades, I think it's probably worthy of starting there. And Kieran, I'll crack on and I'll kick off with yourself. And I suppose Lattimore gets traded from the Saints to the Commanders. I think it's a third round pick going back to the Saints. But it just kind of signifies where this Commanders team are at. There's a big run ahead for them now. They're 7-2. They're well within their right to think that they can go and win this NFC East division this year. And quarterback has been probably one of the more concerning pieces on the team this year. So it kind of strikes me as a big deal. It's probably the key trade that's taking place over the course of the day.
Yeah, really nice pickup for them. I mean, we've talked a lot about their offense, the first 8 weeks of the season. But, you want to make a run in the playoffs and you want to do some work in the playoffs. You got to shore that defense up. We've seen what Kansas City have done in the past, even when the Giants won in 2011. Defense comes first when it comes to the playoffs, and they that just signifies they're all in nature. Nice team right now, but they've definitely got a couple of spots they need to shore up. Everyone always needs help, in the secondary, but corner is a position that is often overlooked. But that's a really nice pickup for them, and it just signifies that they're all in. They'll never get a better chance. I mean, the chances of having a year where the Cowboys are in the gutter. And the Eagles are kind of stumbling too, so that they're looking at this year being their year, on top of all the plus signs they've had from Jaden Daniels and even players like Austin Eckler, who I for one didn't think was going to have anything close to the production he's had. So yeah, nice pickup for them. It shows their intent. They're going. I mean, as if we didn't know already, with a 7-2 record, they are going all in, but definitely addressing some defensive needs that are very important in the once we get into the January. And hopefully for them, the February months.
No, I suppose this is probably a sign of where the Saints are at. Obviously, we haven't touched on the fact that Dennis Allen was relieved of his duties yesterday as head coach, and then within 24 hours they traded arguably one of their biggest players, who's probably been one of the most consistent players on defense for a few years. I suppose we'll start with your reaction to the news that broke yesterday of Dennis Allen losing his job, and then if you want to follow up with some thoughts on the trade. And where does this leave the Saints? Are we going to a rebuild mode already?
Kind of feels like that, doesn't it? I don't know if they have an idea of who they want to come in or what the plan is going to be going forward. But look, I'm not surprised, because I think myself and Kieran during the off season had Dennis Allen going as the first head coach to go. We both thought he was he was the one that would be leaving before any other head coach. And after the first couple of games, it looked like we were going to be a bit off on that. But I mean, things have just the last 7 games ending with a defeat to the Panthers. The players weren't happy. You could just tell watching this team after the first 2 games that things weren't right there. I know they may have had injuries there that kind of contributed, but so does everybody. Everybody has injuries, and they just didn't cope well with it. So I'm not surprised. I think it's a sign of a team that need to make changes. And when we're getting rid of a player like Lattimore, it does maybe hint at, they see a lot of changes coming for this team down the track. This season is done now. Obviously, maybe they think they'll go high enough in the draft next year for a quarterback to get a bit of stability in there, because I don't think Carr is the guy to lead this team forward. So yeah, no surprise in yesterday's result. No surprise that they lost a good player today, or they traded away a good player. And I think for the Commanders, it shows an intent that I don't think any of us thought this team would be having after week 9, that now they're looking at this division and thinking, at the NFC East, maybe we can push these teams. There's no standout team that is a mile ahead of us. We're getting results, and if we can maybe get a piece or two added to that, then the Commanders maybe feel like they can push it. So yeah, look, interesting move all the way around. I can see the logic from every side.
Shane, great to have you on board this evening. Busy evening for you, and busy evening on the trade deadline coming up at 9 o'clock. But one deal that's just gone in the last half an hour, so bear with me if you haven't heard it, but Tre'Davious White has been traded from the Rams, cornerback, to the Ravens. And this one for me is a bit unusual, because the Rams have kind of reversed the trend over the course of the last 2 weeks. There was talk of Cook being traded before the deadline. Then they go and beat the Raiders. They have the big win against the Vikings. They win on Sunday in overtime against the Seahawks, and yet they trade arguably one of the better players on defense to the Ravens, who, by all accounts, were in on the Marshawn Lattimore trade up to a certain point. Obviously, the stakes got too high for them, but they've gone and addressed the need a cornerback, and it's an interesting one because you don't tend to see teams who look like they're in the push for the playoffs make these moves either.
Yeah, sorry guys. Sorry for my tardiness, but I have my own trade deadline to get over a brand new shiny rugby podcast on another channel. Yeah, this is actually the first I've heard of this move. But I was just talking to a Ravens fan who I work with, who was saying that he's dying for some kind of pass defense move or some kind of, I guess, show of ambition from the Ravens side, that they are serious about not just being a blitz defense. We've talked about it before whenever we tried to preview Baltimore Ravens games, that they're great at putting pressure on the quarterback. They're great at line of scrimmage play. Their offense is excellent. We saw how good Lamar Jackson can be. We saw how good Derrick Henry can be. But if they're serious about being able to stop the Chiefs in the playoffs, which is the aim for the Ravens now, are you good enough to stop the Chiefs in the playoffs? You have to try and improve on pass defense. Tre'Davious White is somebody who we've seen play in LA and Buffalo, one of the best in the game in terms of his position. What way he kind of fits into that system, we'll see, because maybe then we can learn whether the defensive problems when it comes to stopping the aerial attack is a system problem or a player problem. I'm willing to bet that the system can be changed with the right kind of players. This is the right player that we want to bring in. I am a little bit surprised from the Rams, though, because the Rams are a team who look like they're in the ascendancy. They're in a division which is definitely winnable. The only reason I can sort of see the value in this is that the Rams are generally pretty good at using draft picks and building on draft picks for the future. I think the Rams know full well that as much as they can top the division, as much as they can put things together in order to put a run this season, they're not winning the Super Bowl this year. So I think maybe they might be sort of hedging their bets for a couple of years down the line for when the Super Bowl window might open up for them. But for the Ravens, I think this is exactly the kind of move they need to make in order to be good enough to defeat the Chiefs come playoffs, because they need to be a little bit better in the pass defense. They can't blitz their way out of every playoff game that they're going to face once we hit January.
Kieran, the Lions have obviously had a really successful few weeks despite the injury to Hutchinson and despite the performances of the defense. Again, on Sunday in Lambeau, there was still this ongoing talk that they were going to make a trade. Dan Campbell was very, I suppose, aggressive in his press conference last week. He felt there was something in the offing, and it's come to fruition today. Is Darius Smith traded from the Browns to the Lions, and I mean, they haven't had to give away the yard either to get this deal done. It's the kind of player that you can imagine come in, hit the ground running, and fit into the system. It's just another sign again. This team really are ready to rumble, ready to finally get over the line from where they were last year with the NFC Championship game. It's a huge move. It's the first domino to fall today on trade deadline day. It's a bit. The Lions will look at this now, and I mean, can anybody stop them in the NFC? I know we're going to come to the discussion around the game shortly, but it's a marquee move. Bearing in mind what came later on in the day as well.
Yeah, marquee move, a great move for them. I mean, it's almost like they need a placeholder just to get him, just to get him to the end of the season. It's the worst kept secret in football if they were going to pick up a DE. They probably would have preferred, somebody like Max Crosby, but the price is going to be too high with somebody like that. And the same with Myles Garrett. So good pickup for them. It's a position obviously that they need, and it's another incentive of their kind of dominance in the NFC. Everyone knew they were going to get one. It was just a matter of time. It was just a matter of who. But that's going to be a huge pickup for a defense. A defense that's already been playing really well, even without
Hutchinson.
There we go, Hutchinson.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, great pickup for them, and it just keeps them moving in the division and moving in the conference. And I mean, who's going to stop them in this conference? That's the thing right now. I mean, Washington will fancy their chances after their pickup, but yeah, we'll talk about the teams coming up in a bit.
Yeah, a bit of a run on wide receivers now. Mike Williams to the Steelers from the Jets, probably a very obvious one. Looked inevitable. Mingo gone from the Panthers to the Cowboys. Cowboys fans are up and over of what they're giving away a 4th pick. I'll just come to you on Herbert, the running back, because obviously that's your team. He's left the Bears, and Zach Moss has gone on IR with the Bengals. We've seen Chase Brown have a really kind of productive season at running back. The Bengals' run game has been stifled, and Herbert really hasn't been getting the carries in Chicago that many probably expected him to come on from previous seasons. Are you surprised that they moved them on? And it's probably more so for the Bengals than just the Bears right now in terms of what they need.
Yeah, no, from a Bears point of view, I'm not surprised. This has been in the offing now for a while. It's been clear for a long time that the guys who came in, the front office and the coaching staff, Herbert just wasn't their guy. When they brought Roshan Johnson in last year, that was a sign that, he immediately went above Herbert. Even Travis Homer, who is more of a special teamer, seems to get runs when you expect Herbert to come in. So it's not a surprise from the Bears' point of view. I mean, which is a shame they didn't find a way to make him work. He is a good running back. He's a good option. He's not the most effective dual threat quarterback or running back in the league, but he can take a pass as well if you need him there. But I think his biggest issue that the Bears kind of just couldn't deal with is he can't block. And I think they want running backs who can come in and who can help out and who can block. And that's really not Herbert's game. But I mean, in terms of running the ball, he's a very good, effective runner when he's given the shot. So I mean, I think for him, it was the right time to move. I think he just found himself slipping back and back in the depth chart. He wasn't getting near the starting team. And it's good there. From the Bengals' point of view, as you say, Zach Moss goes on IR. You have Chase Brown there, who's having a good season. And I think Herbert can come in and complement that. And I do think he'll be given a better chance, especially in this offense. We know the weapons they have. That could maybe give him a bit more of a chance when he gets out there as well. So I think all around, it's a good move. It's one that he desperately needed. And I think he's fallen into a good offense that if their defense can kind of get sorted and the Bengals can continue on a bit of form, it could end up being a very good move for him in the end.
I think we'll hold that point on the Cardinals so we get to that Cardinals-Bears game. So I'm sure Noel, as a Bears fan, will have a lot to say. And Kieran, I'll hand it over to you on the Cardinals when we get there. We are going to start talking the games on Sunday. If there's any more trades in the next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll obviously discuss them. But Shane, I'll start with you. I suppose we'll put this into an NFC North wrap. It felt like a bit of a moving day on Sunday night going into Monday with the Vikings beating the Colts, coming back in the second half and was finding a way. They weren't very, very impressive in the first half, left the Colts hanging around. And obviously the big game in Lambeau earlier in the evening. And going into the game all day, the weather conditions are poor. The Lions haven't played an outdoor game all season. Everyone felt like it was falling into the Packers' lap, but it wasn't the case. It was a really strong and dominant Lions performance once they kind of got over the initial period of the game. And then obviously the Jordan Love interception thing is starting to be a concern for Packers fans, and he throws a pick six. And whilst there was a 10-point score in terms of the final results, this game was long gone for the Packers very early on. I'd say early second half when Gibbs brought it in for the touchdown. Were you surprised with the nature of the victory, or do you think this was just one of those days where the Packers just didn't get going at all?
I'm not surprised because I said it on Thursday that Jordan Love was going to throw an interception. So when he threw a pick six, I was like, oh, this is exactly what we're expecting from this guy now. And he nearly threw another couple of interceptions going into the second half. You look at the scoreline 24-14, you think, okay, that game was maybe a little close, but actually watching it wasn't. The Lions had control for pretty much all of the game. And they're proving now, I think, to be the best team in the NFL. I know the Chiefs are unbeaten, but I think in real terms, the Lions are the best team in the NFL. The Packers came out there knowing the importance of this game, came out there with a plan. We know how well coached they can be. There was a bit of a quirk in this game, the fact that the Lions were the first outdoor game they have played. But I guess when you're training outdoors in Michigan every day, playing outdoors in Wisconsin doesn't really make a huge difference. Look, very simple. There is a mentality difference in the quarterback situation when it comes to the three teams chasing to win the NFC North. Jared Goff, I think, is in a great place mentally. He's playing good football. He's surrounded by footballers who have confidence in him. He's surrounded by footballers who have confidence in themselves. We saw that with Amon-Ra St. Brown turning up with the Green Bay Sucks hoodie. And then early in the second quarter, takes that touchdown pass on a fourth down play. And a fourth down play when the Lions could have just, did a tush push to get the yard and give themselves 4 extra downs. No, they went for it. And they passed to the corner and got the touchdown. And it's things like that, the belief in themselves, the confidence in themselves, and the fact that they just don't mentally waver in ways that they might have done at 1 or 2 key points last season that put the Lions on top of the rest in the NFC North. Jordan Love shouldn't have played this game, really. I don't think he was fit enough to really play this game. I said it beforehand. The reason he did is because it was against the Lions. If this game was against an AFC opponent, he would have been benched for a week because they have a bye week after this. So he would have got plenty of rest before going back into it. I think he has got skill. He's very creative, but ball security is a real problem for Green Bay at large. with Jordan Love as quarterback, and we saw that with the pick six. We saw that there's two other plays, particularly in the fourth quarter, when I think if things had fallen a little bit more fortunate for the Lions defense, they could have got another couple of turnovers. And then we talk about the Vikings playing on Sunday Night Football and Sam Darnold. I think it's a real interesting one because I think there is not a growing opinion, but there are some talk that the Vikings are a great team, and if they had a great quarterback, they could actually push that a little bit further and actually be in the Super Bowl conversation in the way that they actually aren't in the Super Bowl conversation right now, even though they're sitting at 6-2. Sam Darnold had a 3-touchdown game, 290 yards, but found it very difficult to get going in the first half, threw a couple of interceptions, and it's coming off the back of a couple of games where, albeit played against some very good defensive play, still, I don't know. He's Sam Darnold. He's playing on the team. I think has a lot of belief in him. I still think he needs to find another purple patch so he can try and push on a little bit stronger. If the Vikings are going to be truly strong enough to beat the Lions when they play against each other later on in the season, I think the Vikings are definitely a good enough team to make the playoffs, as are the Packers. But the big thing is for both of those quarterbacks to try and get in a better place mentally, I think, so they can stop making some mistakes. And I think Sam Darnold is probably in a better position to improve as the season goes on. Jordan Love needs to take a break, and something needs to change in that offensive game plan to protect that ball better, because they're getting rid of it way too easily.
Kieran, I read a report today that Sam Darnold has been reading too much of he's been believing too much of the hype that was put around him earlier on in the season, and I don't know if that's a Kevin O'Connell thing because he's so great at kind of delivering performance no matter who the quarterback is. But people are saying Sam Darnold needs to go back to Sam Darnold of old to a certain extent and methodical drives as opposed to trying to sling it around the field. That's not the nature of the quarterback in which you take it on. But again, he's probably been challenged by Kevin O'Connell to go and do that type of thing. But over the course of the last few weeks, he's kind of gone back to, I wouldn't say gone back to Sam Darnold of old, but he certainly kind of regressed slightly from what we saw earlier on in the season. Was there an element of surprise going into the season in terms of how he played? And I wouldn't be getting over concerned if it was a Vikings fan, but he certainly wasn't at it for large parts of that game on Sunday night.
Well, there's no way he could really keep up with that electric pace he had at the start of the season. I mean, there was always going to be a little, regression as the season went on. You get knocks and injuries. We never know exactly how injured and how knocked up some of these guys are at this stage of the season. That was a brutal first half, though. There was very little offense. I mean, he was sacked. I think 3 times in the first half, 4 in total. But he still ended up with 290 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he was able to, that's as bad an offensive output that first half as you can get in the league. But he found a way to turn it around. He threw some touchdowns to players who were not really heralded, not in the Justin Jefferson kind of class. So, like Addison and Oliver and even Naylor. So, I mean, he spread the ball around. He was able to make things out of, he was able to make plays out of difficult situations. And that Colts defense really, I mean, they kept him on his toes the whole time. They really came to play and really came to bully him around the place. I read something that I think it was either yesterday or just after the game that O'Connell is challenging him to still be aggressive and still make those big plays and still, don't change from what he is. I mean, at this stage, it's gotten him this far. It's got the Vikings this far. There's going to be difficult games down the stretch. I mean, we all know that. He's playing in the NFC North. But a huge win. They needed that win to stop the slide. If there was a third loss in a row, that would really get everybody talking and saying, is the Darnold, is the train off the Darnold tracks? But he manned up and he kept it going, and he got them in the win column, which was a difficult game. It was sloppy, not a lot of offense on display, but he did what he needed to do. He threw 3 touchdowns, and he was able to get that team going despite getting slapped around a good amount of the first half.
No, Monday Night Football, and we spoke at Buskers on the Ball there a couple of weeks ago on the day in which DeAndre Hopkins was traded to the Chiefs from the Titans, and he goes and has a 2-touchdown game last night, something we haven't seen for quite a while, and he's posting certain images today of Tom Brady and Randy Moss as if this is the ultimate connection. I finally got the man I needed in Patrick Mahomes. But again, it wasn't the most comprehensive of performances from the Chiefs. They looked like they had the win. Excuse me. But Baker Mayfield, I felt last night, again, showing his true worth to this Bucs team, rallies back, finds a game-winning drive to put the game into overtime. But unfortunately, and Shane joked about it today and Kieran on our own kind of internal group the Chiefs get the ball first in overtime, time and time again. They just navigate the drive, put the game away, but just wasn't again one of the performances that you look at over the course of the season and say, wow, there's the Chiefs of old. But yeah, here they are, they're unbeaten. And now the questions are starting to turn. I've seen numerous tweets today. Can they go unbeaten? Will they go unbeaten? Will there be a situation where they'll have the 4th seed wrapped up and they won't see the need to win these games? But right now it's hard to see who's going to stop them. They do have the Bills in a fortnight. That's a big game. It's in Buffalo. Maybe they're the team that would stop them. But it's hard to say that they won't be a team certainly challenging to be back in the Super Bowl, but still not a great performance overall.
No, and as you kind of mentioned, how often have we said that this year, where we've looked at the Chiefs and thought they haven't looked right tonight, but oh well, they've won, so fair enough. Our Mahomes hasn't put up the numbers we'd expect, or hasn't had the games at times we'd expect, but then there's one or two plays where he just shows you why he is who he is and why he's got those rings, and that's just the way the Chiefs are. You mentioned then obviously DeAndre Hopkins, you bring him in. As you say, we talked about him. He's a player who he has all the talent, whatever had gone on in previous teams, and maybe, things had kind of run a course. He's the kind of player that, a team can bring in who has the talent there. And if you can unlock that, and if you can kind of get him excited about playing, he can do what he did in Monday Night Football, and he can get 2 touchdowns and almost 90 yards. And that can be a difference in a game when they really need to go to someone. Obviously, Travis Kelce gets 100 yards as well. He hasn't been the Kelce of old so far this season, really. So for the Chiefs, it's just good to get him in and getting some yards. But look, how could you bet against them going to the Super Bowl? No matter how they play week in, week out, they just know how to win. They grind it out. And we see that then in overtime. They take the ball and they have the mentality, the winning mentality, to take that ball and not give it back to the Bucs and not give them a shot. And it's going to be so hard. I mean, we can look at the Bills and other tough teams in the AFC, but how can you look past the Chiefs at the moment, the way they go with the guys they have there, Andy Reid and Mahomes, and a couple of the players I mentioned there. Kareem Hunt has come back, and he's like the Kareem Hunt of old in the Chiefs. He's getting in there and he's doing what he needs to do. So yeah, look, it's a tough ask for anybody to stop this team, and you'd be a brave man to bet against 3 in a row. On the flip side, you talked about Sam Darnold there a few minutes ago, and Baker Mayfield is the quarterback Sam Darnold wants to be. He wants to have that resurgence in his career. And look, fair play to the Bucs. They put it up to them. They're missing some really influential top players there, Tampa, and they're still able to push the Chiefs like that. I've seen a lot of people argue whether or not they should have gone for 2 at the end to go for the win. Personally, I'm fine with them going for the 1 and taking the extra point, because if he goes for 2 and he misses, then it's a completely different story. And how could he be going for 2 against against the Chiefs? Look, this Bucs team are a decent team. They've got some players missing, which is going to make it hard for them in that division. But still, with Baker Mayfield playing the way he's playing, again, they'll be in with a chance there. So it was an interesting game in the way it finished. But again, look, the cream rises to the top of the Chiefs, and they just always seem to be on top when the game finishes.
Yeah, credit to Todd Bowles. It's a great performance, bearing in mind, as you said, the players are missing. They're going to have another big test on Sunday when they face the 49ers coming off their bye week. Shane, you're going to preview the Bengals and Ravens on Thursday with Kieran O'Donovan, so it's probably ideal to finish the first segment of the show discussing those two teams winning in the AFC North on Sunday. Both put up 41 points. Bengals 41-24 against the Raiders, and obviously the beatdown of the Broncos, which didn't look the case for a long part of the first half. The Broncos held their own. But this is what we expected from the Ravens, having coming off that loss last week against the Browns. They react very well. Derrick Henry, 2 touchdowns. And when they hit the ground running, we spoke with that, big points against the Bills on a Sunday night at home, big points against the Broncos. They look primed to be the only team, realistically, maybe outside the Bills, that can challenge the Chiefs for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and sorry, I was going to go on a big thing about the Chiefs, but how someone seriously has to come and beat them at some point. The Chiefs keep scraping all of these victories, and surely at some point they win. And the annoying thing about the Chiefs is, even if they lost, they would use whatever injustice befalling them on their defeat to go and beat teams in the playoffs. And before the season, when I was looking at teams that could beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, I was looking at the Ravens and the Bengals. But one of the interesting points regarding this matchup, you mentioned the fact that they both come in off weeks and they scored 41 points. The Ravens scored 41 points against the Broncos defense, which I think has shown itself to be pretty strong and pretty aggressive. A little bit of a Wimbledon crazy gang about the way that they approach some of the games. And the Bengals have come off scoring 41 points against the Raiders, who I think are a much easier team to to get past. We saw that with the fact that Joe Burrow managed to pass for 5 touchdowns. And I would like to take a small bit of credit for the victory, of course. This is the first time that I didn't back the Bengals to win, and they ended up having a nice, comfortable day out. But look, when you're looking at this matchup, I think it's a weird one, because we've seen the Bengals before in a situation where they have had a slow start to the season, but have tried to charge their way through the rest to try and top the division, when the matchups against the Ravens ended up being crucial, and it's where they ended up coming out on top. 2 seasons ago, they did come out on top. Last season, didn't. So they have it in their locker to be able to come into this game, knowing full well that winning this game puts them on 5-5, puts the Ravens back a game in the race for division. The Ravens will end up being at 6-4 if the Bengals win on Thursday night. So they have it in their locker to go out and get it. But the problem is, you're facing against a Ravens team who are strong in the line of scrimmage on offense and defense, have just made a signing to try to improve their pass game, which not only will, in terms of the addition to the roster, how will the rest of the roster react to that? Lamar Jackson is playing pretty strong and is excellent in ball security. Derrick Henry is over 1,000 yards. We're only 9 weeks into the season. There isn't a weakness for the Bengals to exploit. Now, we thought that when the Ravens played against the Browns 2 weeks ago, and the Ravens are a team which are susceptible to dropping these divisional games. But I just don't see it against the Bengals. I think they know that trying to beat the Bengals is too important for them. And we'll get into this in more detail with Kieran for the Thursday Night Football this week. But I see Joe Burrow passing for 5 touchdowns, and the fact that Chase Brown managed to get over 100 yards on the run game, that ain't going to happen against Baltimore. The defense is too good. I think Joe Burrow is going to get hit a lot, and I just don't trust him to be as sharp as he used to be when he's under that kind of pressure. Joe Burrow needs a much better offensive line than he did the year that the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl. I think that's just the way that he's developing as a player. He needs a bit more time in the pocket before he can actually make the kind of passes that the Bengals need in order to move up the field. So it's an interesting one, but the Ravens are strong in almost every facet of the game. It's only really a game plan and maybe that Thursday night switch, which is going to give the Bengals a chance. But it'll be interesting to hear what Kieran thinks about it when I speak to him for Thursday morning's podcast.
And I think this is the game, if I recall correctly, last year where Joe Burrow got a season-ending injury. So maybe there's a redemption story to come on Thursday night in Baltimore. That brings us to the end of the first segment of the Irish NFL Show. Welcome back into the Irish NFL Show, segment 2, brought to you by our partner, QuinnBet. Kieran, I'm going to kick off. Obviously, we were kicking off our instant reaction podcast just as the overtime game concluded in Seattle on Sunday night. And a part of me felt relieved for the Rams as they got over the line, because we were back and forth in the group about some of the precarious calls by the referees in that game, and they seemed to be all going against the Rams for large parts. You had pass interference, you had the pick six that they looked like they were going to throw a flag on. They ended up picking the flag up. It was an unusual set of circumstances. I could see McVay was getting clearly frustrated by some of the calls, which it was head scratching at the time. Ultimately, where this game turned was Geno Smith, 2 turnovers in the red zone, one obviously returned for a pick six, and then second one by Kitchens again, same player, just at a critical time. It looked like Seattle were going to rebound and tie the game up. It's a big win, bearing in mind, as we touched on earlier with the trade news, the Rams have gone now 3 in a row, and they've gone from a team that people were suggesting were going to look to move off players, now certainly in the mix within the NFC West.
Oh, absolutely in the mix. And there's a guy on X who's worked for with Bill Simmons, and he always says that there's no normal game in Seattle. Every game is bananas. So this was just another one of them. Nice win for the Rams. They keep, like you said, it keeps them going, and now they're 4-4 in the division. No longer looking to trade, or no longer looking to get rid of pieces, but now they're getting the players back. I mean, Roseboom is back, Puka's back despite the ejection. Cooper Kupp is back with over 100 yards. Strange game, man. I was rooting for the Rams. This was a Clay Martin out there, the same referee who had the Giants Cowboys game earlier in the season. It was just a flag fest. So difficult kind of flow for this game. You're playing in Seattle, difficult conditions sometimes. But the Rams keep on moving. They keep on producing, and it's a great win for them, and it keeps them right in the hunt again. And I'm almost like the Lions now. I'm almost rooting for the Rams each week just because they were so down with all the injuries, just absolutely decimated everywhere on the field. And they're coming back with Stafford leading the line, making some great plays, throwing the ball 44 times for nearly 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. But on the flip side, though, this Seattle team, yes, Kenneth Walker did rattle off 83 yards, but they're not the same without Metcalf out there. Geno always struggles without Metcalf. It's if you look at the splits and those interceptions, if DK was on the field, maybe they don't happen. Who knows? But Geno was very apologetic in the press conference afterwards, and he felt he let the team down. Seattle's on a bye this week, which is a big thing. They've had a really kind of up and down start of the season, so a week off looks like it's going to do them the power of good just to regroup and start getting ready for the second half of the season. But I really like this Rams team. I like their fight. I wasn't a big fan of Puka getting ejected. I think we've seen a lot worse in the NFL this season to get ejected. But just a really nice performance from the Rams. And like you said, Brian, we were rooting for him. I have nothing against the Seahawks, but I just like a good kind of comeback story, and that's what the Rams look like right now. Starting to get those guys back from injury, like we said a couple of weeks ago. If they can just tread water and keep it moving, and this NFC West division is not really no one's tearing away just yet. So 4-4, just keep it into December if they can have somewhat of a decent record then, and who knows.
Kieran, I'll come back to you shortly because I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on Rob Kearns. This is the beauty of the Irish NFL show. You put your thoughts out in the summer and people will grab onto it and hold onto it for a number of months. I'd be interested to see where you think this Cardinals team are now. Bear in mind, I did say I felt they were close to being a playoff team. I should have went with me gut, but I'll start with Noel because obviously for me the bigger storyline of this game was the frustration again from Bears fans of Matt Eberflus and his coaching of the game and the disappointing nature how to give up a touchdown just before halftime, which kind of mirrored in the way how the game ended last weekend in Washington to give up a huge touchdown. It looked like the Bears were well in the game, and the game kind of fizzled out thereafter, and the Bears never really got going. No, you said last Thursday was one that you felt the Bears would be ready for, and it looked like that was the case for large parts. But obviously, the touchdown before halftime was the killer.
Yeah, no, look, it's hard to even go back and think of this game. It was a complete mess from a Bears point of view again. It looks like the weekend before against the Commanders, they still hadn't shaken that out of their system. In fairness to the Cardinals, look, they exploited an issue with the Bears. I mean, people have talked all season about, a top Bears defense, but one question mark that people had was the run defense. And the Cardinals, I mean, Kyler Murray didn't really have much to do along with his receivers this weekend. They ran the ball down the Bears' throat. Obviously, that run you talk about just before halftime, is a big part of that. And that was just disgraceful defending from a Bears team, especially right at the half when the Cardinals are literally looking to get into field goal range. The Bears just let them run a 53-yarder in, which was anyway mess. But yeah, looking at this from a Bears point of view, I mean, I think this was a massive game for Matt Eberflus and his coaching staff. And unfortunately, I think for the second weekend in a row, I think this coaching staff have failed. Now, that's not to absolve players. There's plenty of players out there didn't do what they were supposed to do. But I think this coaching staff feels like it's coming toward the end of the road. You can just tell when there's a bit of a disconnect between players and coaches, and maybe that message isn't getting through anymore. And I think this is starting to look like it is coming to that point for the Bears. I mean, on the field, we have Caleb Williams. He didn't play well, and you need to mention that there are certain things he's still not doing. At times, his deep ball is wildly inaccurate, and he's not taking his checkdowns when they're there. But he's a rookie quarterback, and these things can be expected. And you want to know, what is the offensive coaches doing to work with him? Because it's the same thing week in, week out. It was the same thing last week against Commanders until he came back in the fourth quarter and really found his cool and pushed for that potential winning drive. And these are the questions the Bears now need to be asking. What are this coaching staff doing to help this young quarterback? This is the second week now where Cole Kmet has been virtually invisible. He got 0 targets this weekend. He got 1 the weekend before. This is your $50 million tight end who you would expect to help a rookie quarterback. 0 targets. This Bears team have gone from having potentially looking at the playoffs, realistically looking at the playoffs, maybe sneaking in, to now we're wondering if this team could win a game between now and the end of the season. I know they've the Patriots next week. I'll be nice because Shane is listening in fairly intensely there. But I mean, people will expect the Bears to win. But who knows? The Patriots are putting up a bit of a fight with Drake May. And this Bears team at the moment just seem fairly lackluster. So that's a very important game, because when you look at the second half of the season, the schedule for the Bears, it's officially the toughest schedule in the NFL. And if they haven't been able to make the early schedule count, then I think they're in trouble for the second half of the year. In terms of the Cardinals, look, they went out, they did what they need to do. I'm still not overly sold on that Cardinals defense. I know they looked really good against the Bears this weekend, but, pretty much anybody could look at good against this Bears defense or this Bears offense. So it'll be interesting to see if the Cardinals defense can maybe take this week and kind of build on it and kind of move from there. I mean, their offense, when the Cardinals need to, I think they have the weapons there to cause teams trouble. And it'll be interesting. Kieran mentioned the NFC West and how nobody's pulling away. So the Cardinals will look at this as a really, really good chance to kind of challenge for that division and push it on for a playoff spot. For the Bears, they need to wake up. I think, you never know what a front office is thinking, but in terms of fans talk and beat writers, it feels like this Matt Eberflus regime has kind of maybe hit the end of the road. And unless you never say never, but unless they have a really strong second half of the season, which will be tough, the Bears could be looking at a new head coach next summer. And that is the last I ever want to talk at that Cardinals game. Thank you.
Shane, I'm coming on Drake May in a minute. I will give you your time in the sun. Just bear with me. Kieran, Cardinals, 3 wins in a row. Jets are home on Sunday. They've got the Panthers on the schedule. They've got the Patriots on the schedule. You can argue they could knock off teams within the division. They've already beaten the 49ers on the road. They've got them in the last weekend of the season. Rob Cairns put the question in earlier around, what's your thoughts on this Cardinals team? If the Rams are in the mix, why can't the Cardinals not be in the mix?
Well, apparently I'm the guy on the left, so I will answer his question. Do I rate the Cardinals? I'm still not sold on them. I still don't rate Kyler. I'll continue putting myself out there. I don't rate him as a leader. I don't rate him as a. I'm not going to get into grading quarterbacks in the league, but not a great output over the weekend. I mean, 13 of 20. He was still sacked 3 times by that Bears defense. I'll keep it brief, but I don't believe in the Cardinals. I think, they've been very patchy and, win one, lose one. That's 2 wins in a row now, but I'm still not sold on them. See me in December after they've gone to Seattle and gone to Minnesota. We'll see where they are in December once the division starts panning out. We'll see where the Niners are. We'll see where the Rams are as well. So not sold on them. I don't think I'll make a bold statement now on November 5th. Cardinals don't make the playoffs, and Murray regresses during the season.
Okay, we'll watch that space. Shane, I apologize. I hadn't put Drake May in on the notes for this show, but it popped into my head because it was probably the play of the weekend. And then you see the Homer Simpson, piece on the Simpsons NFL Twitter page around. He's out on the skateboard. I'm the best. And this is unbelievable. And then he drops down very quickly because he throws an interception in overtime, which essentially ends the game. But we can't get away from arguably one of the best plays of the season. The last play of the game, essentially. I mean, he wins out with so many tackles and he finds a player in the end zone. And it just for me, it just signifies where the Patriots are. Yeah, there's tough times ahead, but you can clearly say they're going in the right direction in terms of the quarterback. This, to me, looks like they've got their man for the future.
Yeah, it's actually funny, even when you're watching the Simpsons analogy, the episode when they're going across the gorge, the fact that Homer was in so much pain afterwards, because after Drake May got that touchdown, I leapt out my chair and whacked my knee off the table, which is the only piece of excitement from an otherwise boring game, to be fair, against the Tennessee Titans. There was a lot of punts. Neither team really managed to take control. The Titans were good value for the victory, in fairness to them. They got the ball in overtime. The Patriots defense looked kind of tired. There were a lot of periods where the Patriots defense looked a bit soft, to use that very dangerous word which is being thrown around Foxborough very recently. But look, I said it at the start of the season that even if the Patriots ended this year with a worse record than last year, but we know that Drake May is something we can build on, because the Patriots at the moment have good draft capital going forward. We have the most amount of cap space to work with. We have a few young players we can develop, particularly on offense, and we have a bit of time. And Drake May is so far the guy. Now, he needs us to stop himself from becoming a bit of an Anthony Richardson case and learn when to slide, learn when to go for the sideline when he goes for those running plays. It's a part of the game which wasn't there for Mac Jones. It wasn't there for Jacoby Brissett either. It's the fact that Drake will take the ball and run with it and have no problem running with it, and will really make excellent gains, as well as the passing, which is particularly strong. And I completely forgive him, by the way, for throwing a pick on the final play of the game. I think it was a bad play call. He ended up throwing it into double coverage and email it to the Titans when they got, when the Patriots had a ball and had the opportunity to move it up and score a touchdown. I completely forgive him for that. But what I want to see different now from Drake May is the fact that he won't keep putting himself in danger of getting injured. He got a head injury last week from a helmet clash against the Jets. Sorry. There's a couple of times against Tennessee where he came up and instead of sliding, he was going in head first. He's going in body first, and he leaves himself open to too many injuries. And that's the only kind of danger. I just hope that we're not sitting here in the middle of December and saying, "Oh, isn't Drake great, but he's missed such games this season because he keeps getting himself injured because he's just too talented to do it." But look, if the Patriots have that piece, then by next offseason they can be aggressive and they can start properly building for the future. And I think he is a fantastic quarterback to build around.
No, the Eagles 22-0 up. Looks like a foregone conclusion. Everybody is waxing lyrical about Saquon Barkley's touchdown, and then obviously the leap of faith play, and then all of a sudden things took a huge turn, and the Jags found a way to come back. And even when they came back with the 2 touchdowns and 2-point conversions, you're still thinking, yeah, the Eagles are going to put the foot on the gas again. They show a fantastic touchdown to Smith, and again, you think the game is over, and yet they stumbled thereafter and allowed the Jags team to come back, and even gave the Jags an opportunity to win the game, having missed a huge field goal at the end, which I thought was an unusual move. I thought they should have punted and put the Jags back in right down the back of their own end zone, as opposed to giving them great field position. And this is probably the nature of where we're at with Trevor Lawrence, and Kieran rightly called out in the offseason. You look at the merits of the contract, you look at the merits of a Daniel Jones contract. Trevor Lawrence hasn't really played at the level deserving of that contract, but the Jags felt obliged to give him the contract. He has a big opportunity to get that game-winning drive, and he throws a very shoddy pass, and it's intercepted by Dean. But like, there was positives for the Jags. They fought hard in the second half for their head coach, but it's one that it's a real stinger because they had the opportunity to win. But I wonder where this Eagles team is right now. They're going to play against the Cowboys this weekend. Dak Prescott's got on IR. He's out for 4 games, so they're rightly clearly favourites for this game now. But it still doesn't fit right. They have some great players. Players make some huge plays in the game, and it looks like, oh, that's the Eagles we know. But then they do silly things by letting a poor Jags team back into it, give them the opportunity to win. And it's not sustainable. This is what we've seen all season. They'll win some games, but having had such a comprehensive few weeks and victories, it was back to the Eagles of old, inconsistency throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, it's a strange one because they have the players there. You talked about it. We saw what they've been like over the last couple of years. Well, last season until they had that collapse. You know, that's the kind of the team you expect the Eagles with these players to be. But for some reason, it just, even when they have that big lead, they just switch off. Something seems to go wrong. I mean, look, a lot of it, it's been said before, and it'll probably be said again. I have issues with their head coach. I think there are certain things he does that you just can't warm to, and I wonder if he is the weak link. If maybe you had a better head coach in there, could you really get the best out of this team more often? Again, look, who knows? We'll see. At the moment, they've won a couple of games. They've gone out of the slide, so maybe this team can put it together, because, as you say, they have the talent. This weekend, though, they're very lucky to walk out with that victory. I mean, that was, it comes down to 1:42, and Trevor Lawrence throws that up. Again, you're putting the ball up to a running back as well, which I'm not overly impressed with. And I have questions with the play calling for that drive as well. I mean, I think they're 1st and 10 in the red zone. I wonder if they could take a bit more time off the clock, maybe run it, because you don't want to, if you score there, this Eagles team still has the players to go down the other end. But they do what they do. They throw it up, and the game ends. And it's just two teams where I think there are question marks about the coaching situations at both. You mentioned Trevor Lawrence. Look, he's definitely not played up to the level of the first round quarterback, number 1 drafted quarterback that he is. But you've got to pay these young quarterbacks, because what else do you do? It's a quarterback driven league, and that's just where you are. I mean, if you get rid of him, someone else pays him and maybe he comes in and does well, and then it's egg on the face. But no team can draft a number one quarterback like that and then not pay him. So they're going to have to persist, hope that talent that they believe he has somewhere kind of is brought out more and that he can capitalize on it. But this game was just a strange one, and in a way, it kind of encompasses both teams, the up and down nature of them, and how you don't really know what you're going to get out of them. This Eagles team does have the talent. There is a chance in the NFC East. It's there for them. The Commanders are obviously pushing for it, which is a team I don't think any of us expected to. But the Eagles are still thereabouts, and if they get a run together, they can, but they just need to get that consistency. They need to benefit from these exciting, talented players that they have. And that Saquon Barkley turn and backward jump was worth watching the game for on its own.
Shane, Jonathan Mingo traded to the Cowboys today, 4th round pick gone back. A higher pick than some of the other moves made over the course of the last week, which is bizarre in itself. Jerry Jones was on the radio in Dallas today saying it was a player that they had a keen eye on during the draft process, and obviously it didn't materialise in terms of them selecting him. And they're on a bit of an awkward window at the moment. They've got the Eagles coming to town. Dak Prescott's been confirmed he's going on IR. They lose a tough game in Atlanta on Sunday. Where is everybody in Jerry World and Cowboys world right now? Because it feels like everything's caving in.
The Cowboys are cooked. I think it's as simple as that. Now, this move I think is kind of interesting. It's obviously that they're trying to put some zest back into their offense after a few pretty shoddy performances. I think the amount of draft capital given to the Panthers is probably a little bit more than he is worth, but hey, that's what we've come to expect from the Jerry Jones experience in Dallas. There's a couple of things kind of point out to me or stick out to me when I say that the Cowboys are cooked. Firstly, their schedule. The 4 weeks that they're going without Dak Prescott, their $60 million a year man, are the Eagles, which the Eagles I think will win because it's not in Philadelphia, so there aren't Philadelphia fans to boo Nick Sirianni, so they'll play a decent game. The Texans on Monday Night Football, who will expose them, the Commanders, who will expose them, and the Giants, who I actually think might be good enough to get a victory by the end of November. And then you just look at the product on the field. The question was asked me today, why is Michael Parsons not asking for a trade? Why isn't he trying to leave Dallas? Why isn't he trying to go somewhere where he can actually do something with his career? And the simple fact of the matter is, a lot of the players in Dallas aren't leadership material. They are great talents. They can do great things if they had a properly good coach, but they're there because they like being a Dallas Cowboy. Michael Parsons has a very big podcast that he does himself every week called The Edge. I can't imagine as many people would listen to that if he were a Jacksonville Jaguar or even a Houston Texan. Yet in Houston, he's a better chance to go and win a Super Bowl. And Dak Prescott standing on the sideline saying, oh my God, we suck, we're crap. Yeah, we can all see that. What are you doing to fix it? I don't see one proper movement from a lot of the key players you would expect to show leadership from the Cowboys that makes me think, okay, I can trust them to go and against an Atlanta team which the Cowboys should be beating, find a way to go and beat them. And I think it's very simple. I think McCarthy is not going to be the head coach next year. I don't know who is. They didn't do enough in the offseason to try and bolster their talent. The talent they have there, some of them I think are feeling a bit disgruntled. Some of the talent they have there, I think, are there more for the attention than they are for rings. And it is all the talent and the ability to pull out good performance, particularly at home, which sustained the Cowboys far enough to get to the playoffs, has completely dropped now because they're just not performing at home. 3 of their next 4 games when they don't have Dak Prescott are at home. Now, in fairness, I was impressed enough by the backup quarterback, Cooper Rush. I thought, and obviously, his completion rate wasn't great, but the plays he managed to pull out were good, and he actually brought the Cowboys kind of within touching distance in the end. But, there really is not a lot to give confidence that the Cowboys can pull this up. And is it going to turn into a dumpster fire by the end of November? I don't know. It could. It really could.
I don't think it will because they had a situation, I think, 2 seasons ago where Cooper Rush had to step in for 4 games, and I think he won. I think he won all of them. I think he won in Minnesota on a Sunday Night Football, if I remember correctly. And he went on a bit of a run. I think he beat the Giants even when he was quarterback, which probably isn't the big thing because Cowboys always beat the Giants. But he's serviceable. He can keep you in the games and keep you in a position until Dak comes back. But ultimately, I think there's bigger issues. at hand. We'll wrap up our NFC East talk, I guess. Kieran, I'll come to you. Same old Giants. It's a bit weird. 1 week the defense plays really well and the offense can't move the ball. On Sunday, that wasn't the case at all. It was the defense that let the team down. The Giants scored in every drive of the second half. Obviously, one field goal, which was because of the nature of a very dubious pass interference flag, which was given on fourth down where it was a touchdown. So they could have went back-to-back touchdowns throughout the course of the second half. And went for 2-point conversions again, 0 for 6 over the course of the season. And I didn't think the Commanders played great on Sunday. I felt their run game when it got them over the line because they tore up the Giants defense. But a big win. This is where we're at. We see it year after year. Teams who are going in the right direction find ways to beat the teams who are struggling, even if it is a closer game than itself. And it makes for a big game this weekend. Steelers coming off a bye going into Washington to face the Commanders. But a huge win. But your thoughts overall over the course of that game?
Yeah, I mean, you again, we talked about the two teams, and they're both going in opposite directions. I mean, Giants are 2-7, the Commanders are 7-2, and they didn't have to be great; they just had to be good enough. Giants were, Jones showed some flashes, but again, it's too little, too late. It's at this stage, it's just playing out the season. We thought Olajari might have gone today, but he's going to stay with the Giants, so that's something. But overall, it was the Jude McAtamney game. He had a good performance, didn't shame himself or make any mistakes. So that was a positive. But you're right that this Washington team just ran right up the gut of this Giants team, and a team that in the earlier part, even up to last week or the week before, defense is what they could hang their hat on, but they just got tore apart in that game. Giants have a serious problem now with Deonte Banks, what they do with him, maturity issues, strength issues, ability issue. All the issues are coming back, and it's another draft pick that it looks like the Giants have whiffed on, one of a lot in the last 3 or 4 years, and another Joe Shane miss. I think unless something else happens, but Washington did enough. Giants didn't disgrace themselves, but again, you always felt that Washington were going to get over the edge. That touchdown that came back really hurt the Giants. I mean, again, bad teams just find a way of getting these calls going against them. But the Giants didn't do enough to win the game, despite Jones being a bit more serviceable. And then you got all the noise now with neighbors afterwards saying, "Well, I don't call the plays," because the last thing you want to do is annoy a rookie wide receiver and get him starting to think about this is a disaster, because unfortunately these kids these days with social media, they get themselves in trouble. So hopefully he has a level head and doesn't do anything stupid. But Dable is a shadow of the coach that he was a couple of years ago. All the swagger and the bravado is gone, as well as his weight. He just looks desperate on the podium after the games. Just to sum up, it's another Giants loss. It's another lost season. It's what do you do? This is the same old for Giants fans. And unless they win a couple of games down the stretch, I didn't think I'd ever say this, but you got to start thinking about Shane now. I mean, what's his legacy going to be? Because every time Saquon is on the field and making plays, I mean, it's just ramming it further down the Giants fans' throats. I mean, there's no plays that Saquon makes without the commentators referencing Mara or Shane or the Giants, and it's at this stage it's nauseating, and it's got to be nauseating for Mara, and I don't know how Shane feels about it, but just a bad time in Giants world. But again, Washington did enough, and they're on the ascent, and the Giants are going the other way.
Yeah, what annoys me more about that is they're doing disservice to Joe Shane to a certain extent, because he did select a running back in the 5th round who's become a stellar player in the offense, and he has better numbers than Saquon Barkley over the course of the season. And every time you look at him, he's the makings of a number 1 running back for the future. So Joe Shane's draft picks have all hit this year. Unfortunately, over the course of the 3 years, a large majority of them. When you sit down at the end of the season and you have, upon reflection, will the owner want to maintain him? I'll close out tonight with one game. I'll come to Nolan and Shane on this, and this was the very shoddy performance of the Buffalo Bills in a 23-20 victory against the Dolphins. And we said on Thursday show, how can the Dolphins stay in this game if they can run the ball effectively? Well, they did that over the course of the game. They had some great opportunities. Josh Allen wasn't on his game whatsoever. I give credit to the Dolphins defense. There was some interceptions in there. But they found a way to play against this Bills team, and they really had a great opportunity to win. And if it wasn't for a dumb play by Poyer, the former Bill, that drive in which he gives up a needless, roughing the helmet call, which was, it was a crazy play, and it was obviously a given as a flag, but that led to a game-winning field goal, which at that stage didn't even look like the Bills were going to get themselves into field goal range because they couldn't even move the ball effectively on the fourth down, second down, throw the ball up, get the flag, find a way to win. Look, good teams find ways to win when they play poorly, but again, this was a game which was there for the Dolphins. 2 weeks in a row, they've had an opportunity to win games with Tua back, and it's a frustrating time for Dolphins fans. I'll start with you, Shane. Your thoughts on this one, because it really wasn't a stellar performance. We felt this would be, I wouldn't say a blowout game, but we all felt that the Bills would win comfortably.
Yeah, even when I was kind of looking at this earlier, now the only thing I will kind of caveat to talk around Josh Allen is the interception wasn't really a Josh Allen interception. It was I don't think that the receiver really did a great job. It's one of those things that will count as an interception, but not quite sure how much blame you could really put on the quarterback. But look, just being able to complete passes can sometimes be Josh Allen's be something that holds him back. And I think there was a lot of periods of the game there where he just, especially in the early in the game when things are a bit slow and the Bills could only score 6 points in the first half. It wasn't able to complete passes. Converting on third down was a problem. Getting good run plays is a problem. And the Miami defense, I think, must take credit for that. But we've mentioned before how the Buffalo offense, if they can't find consistency, they can go into games like this and be vulnerable. And as much as they were really strong the previous 2 weeks, they came in and they shown how bad that inconsistency can be from very early in the game. The only thing I will say, though, is that the Dolphins really should have won this game. They had the chance to get a couple of touchdowns in the first half instead of just being 4 points up. Tua was, I think, 90% accuracy in his passing. The running game was strong. It really is the game that got away from them, but just not being able to defend when the Bills had to go up the pitch, and that I can't remember the name of the player who had that awful foul by the Dolphins at the end. This is a terrible lack of composure by
Poyer is a former Bill. He was there. He was with the Bills up to last year.
Yeah, so I mean that was an awful play. I mean, come on, you're giving the game away. It's dangerous. There was no need for it. You're not actually gaining anything. You're not stopping the player. You're not actually getting into him. And it was you could call it from a mile away. It's stupid stuff like that which throws games away that you should be winning. And that's really the main takeaway from this. The Dolphins threw away a game they should have won.
No, I'll close out with Mike McDaniel because there was so much gloss around him last year. Everyone was raving about his nature of head coaching, but okay, they have Tua back and they can argue, he's been missing for some games, but this season hasn't felt right. And they play the Rams on Monday night. It's kind of the polar opposite of where two young head coaches in this league. Sean McVay is so highly respected, such a great head coach, and we all thought McDaniels was a leading light, but it's kind of fallen off slightly. I think Dolphins fans even are starting to get slightly frustrated with the situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, we think back to the start of last season and how amazing it was, but it's so very different this year. Look, they have dealt with injuries. Obviously, Tua had those injuries, and Achane had injuries, and Mostert was out with injuries, and it got a bit disjointed. But still, injuries are part of the game. We see other, head coaches who are able to get second and third string quarterbacks and bring them in and make things happen. And when you have Tyreek Hill and when you have Jalen Waddle there, you're expecting these guys, and Odell Beckham as well to an extent, you're expecting these guys to be able to step up, and they just haven't. And it's been a really tough season. I thought the Dolphins would have a really good start to the season this year. I thought the second half may be tough given some of the games they had. But I thought in the first half they'd be able to do some damage and challenge for this division. But it's not been the case. I mean, the Bills are running away with this division. I think they have a 4-game lead over the Jets, who have a 1-game lead over the other two teams. And it's just been tough sledding for them. Kieran mentioned earlier, bad teams find a way to lose. And teams that are low in confidence and aren't getting results find a way to lose. And this Dolphins team should have won this game, and they didn't. You've mentioned the Poyer penalty in that game. In the same drive, there was Chop Robinson went into the neutral zone when they had the Bills at 3rd and 14 on their own 26, I mean, the Dolphins had that game in their hands, and 2 penalties on that drive got them into field goal range, and they were able to kick that long field goal. And this is what happens to teams when confidence is low and things aren't clicking. And then you mentioned the head coach McDonald, Mike McDonald. Last year, he was the golden guy. He was the guy that Bears fans were going mad that they didn't go for, because look at what he's doing. But you need to give these things a bit of time, see how how it kind of stretches out and how it goes. And unfortunately, at the moment, he looks like he doesn't have the answers for these things that are going wrong, and he's not been able to scheme his way out of it. And as I say, even with the injuries, they've had good players there. It's just not working. And from a head coach who looked like he had the world at his feet, it's now looking like, come the end of the season, if things keep trending this way, he may not be there anymore. The Dolphins may look to move on, and that'll be interesting to see if that materializes, because that will be a big flip over the course of 12, 18 months to go from one point to the other. But yeah, look, this division is struggling behind the Bills. The Dolphins are finding it hard at the moment, even when they play well and they lose it. That's even worse sometimes than playing bad and getting beaten. When you feel like you had the game in your hands and you just couldn't push it over the line, it'll be interesting to see now going into next week. Is that going to have a knock-on effect to an extra week back? Maybe will he be a bit better, and can he kind of drive the team more? But look, it'll be interesting to see, because they have good players there. They're just not doing it for whatever reason.
We've seen in the past the hour Stephen Ross be impetuous with some decisions. It'll be interesting to see as the season plays out. That is our Week 9 reaction show. We'll be back on Thursday as we preview the big one in Germany, where me and Noel will be in attendance in Munich, and of course all the bigger games that happen on Sunday. But for now, that is the Irish NFL Show.